Anyways, my name is Don Dudeck. I'm a VPX for Avion. This picture on the front is the Tabakoto open pit, and it's pretty well what Nevsun had left us. And since that time, we've gone underground into this deposit. Obvious forward-looking statements. You can read those at your leisure or not. As I said, where we are in Africa, pretty straightforward, relatively good jurisdictions. The only sort of risk item that's coming up in the next little while is in Mali. It's going to have an election in April, and there will be a change in government. And when you have change in governments, there can or may not be changes. Senegal just finished an election. It was a non-event as far as I can tell. And so these things come and go. Investment highlights. We're really doubling who we are as a company today. Last year we did a little over 91,000 ounces. This year we're going to do 140 to 150. Next year somewhere close to 200,000 ounces, depending on really the grade delivered to the mill. We have no shortage of material to deliver, and our grades in this area of the world are higher than average for West Africa. So we expect a reasonable change in valuation, really, when we go from the 100,000 ounce run rate to a 200,000 ounce run rate, and really prove to the market that we can do this. We are starting 2 underground mines. We're operating 3 open pits right now and evaluating a 4th. So constant state of flux. Last year we added 1.7 million ounces in resources. Inferred ounces come into about 640 an ounce in terms of cost. When you brought it into indicated, it was about 25 bucks an ounce. On one of the projects we're bringing in ounces, 1 million ounces at 3.5 bucks an ounce. We can see the next million on that one. We got a 10-year plan at Tabakoto based on the likelihood that we're going to find more ore or more reserves. We do have 2.2 million ounces of resource there, and we're cash flow positive, and that should say the upper 700s, not 600s, in terms of a cash cost. Resource base corporately, 4.7 million ounces. We had a little over 900,000 ounces in reserves as of January 1 of last year. We haven't restated our reserves this year yet. I'm targeting somewhere near the end of April, early May, and that's just truly a function of capacity. You just can't get the people to do the stuff. Our resource grades, reserve grades are pretty good compared to some of our peers in West Africa, with the underground grades averaging around 4.5 grams, and the open pit really between 3 and 5. 2.9 there is just a reflection of stockpile grades. We're everything between 0.5 gram and 1 gram. We're stockpiling, and we have about 1.7 million tons of that material just waiting end of mine life at some point. This is where we think we're going over time, and this is on a 100% basis. So in this year, we're looking at 140, 150. Next year, close to 200,000. In 2014, a little bit more once we start adding our Kofi project into the story. Our big leap up will be in around 2015, or at least that's the plan, assuming no hurdles, where our Houndé project in Burkina Faso can come on. We're looking or targeting there something close to 200,000 ounces. We have 1.6 million ounces of resource there today at a 0.5 gram cutoff at 2.07 grams. That deposit is just going to get bigger, and we can see the next million ounces on that one. So within 5 years, we're going to be, getting close to the 500,000 ounce mark, and it's pretty hard to grow like that anywhere else. This is a cartoon that shows the Tabakoto property here in the bottom, our Kofi property that we acquired from Axeman up above. Tabakoto has 2.2 million ounces of resource. Kofi, from a recent update, is 1.2 million ounces. The C-zone alone here, this particular deposit, at a 1 gram cutoff, it's just under 400,000 ounces at 3.26 grams. That's all open pit. We're modeling that right now to see if it's better to take from the Kofi C-zone versus the Jambai 2. In the Tabakoto property, on that 2.2 million ounce resource, every single zone we have is open. The average drilling depth is somewhere between 225 meters vertically. We're looking at decline-driven mines, maybe going down to 500 meters at this point. And so it's not hard for me to believe that in the next 250 meters, we're going to have another 2 million ounces of resource opportunity. To get a 10-year plan at Tabakoto, all you need is 2 million ounces. If you start out with 4, there's a reasonable likelihood that we'll get to the 2. In addition to that, we have quite a few targets, ore grade intercepts that are scattered that we need to do work on, and we'll follow those up over time. So I'd be really surprised if we don't find more. On the Kofi property, the big thing about that one is this cluster here of black stars. That's Randgold's Lulo complex. That represents 11.3 million ounces of gold. And I don't think it's any big secret. You can see the linearity of where the deposits line up. Their Gunkoto deposit is just off the map to the bottom here. That's another 6 million ounces. So in this structural corridor, which is about 25 kilometers long on their ground, there's 17 million ounces. This line here, which is a geophysical conductivity high, that's the eastern edge of the structure. Where we've been having the most success on this property is within this structural corridor that's about 5 kilometers wide. This is 19 kilometers, and we follow it all the way up into here, but it gets kind of weak, so let's say 7 on that side. So the opportunity is there for us to add resources. On both of these projects, it's not if you're going to hit mineralization, it's a function of how much. We drilled 16 holes this year for 5,000 meters, and we hit mineralization in every hole. And so the model works. Houndé, Burkina Faso, is something we picked up officially in 2010 from Avasat. When we acquired it, there wasn't an ounce of resource. Last year, just before Christmas, on December 21st, we announced an updated resource of 1.6 million ounces at 2.07. That's based on a zone that's 2.65 kilometers in strike. We have mineralization now we've traced with drilling for 5.7. And the geophysics that's coincident with this zone is for 15. But it's not only the Vindaloo zone. 300 meters to the east, there's something called Coho. We've hit every hole for 3.8 kilometers mineralization. We haven't done any work on it to bring it to a resource state because it's a 1 to 2 gram zone and the Vindaloo is a 2 to 2.5. 300 meters to the west, there's another parallel zone where we've hit mineralization. First, we had about 500 or 600 meters on one of the we call Madras zones. We stepped out a couple kilometers and we hit mineralization again. 1.7 kilometers to the west, we've hit another zone. And even within the Vindaloo zone, it's not just one strand or zone of mineralization. The Vindaloo itself is 15 to 20 meters thick. 30 meters to the west, there's another one. 30 meters to the west, there's another one. So we really don't know today what this system's going to do for us. And then we have other things like Bouillere here, 18 grams over 24 meters. Grand Espoir, Daoun is a 600 meter long zone that it's not a priority for us to drill today. It's narrower, but it's still open in all directions. So we have a lot of opportunity to make this a much better project. Our plan for this year is to drill about 40,000 meters here. We're doing a PEA, preliminary economic assessment. That PEA is scheduled to be complete somewhere near the end of Q3, Q4. And that's really just to give me enough time. I want to add 1 million ounces to this project so that we're looking at a 10 to 12,000 ton a day conceptual study that's going to produce close to 200,000 ounces a year. So opportunity summary, just a short-term production doubling, right? You double the size of the mill, you get more gold. The higher the grade we put in through that mill, the more gold we're going to get. So the Tabakoto Lulo camp is a 3 to 6 gram camp, and that's what it is. It's a good place to be. We're expanding our open pit resource base in Burkina Faso at above 2 grams, and that project, even today, we could probably warrant a feasibility study, but you're only looking at a 100 to 150,000 ounce producer. And when we see no limit to the mineralization, why not aim for 2? And we'll see where that goes. I'm quite optimistic. And logistically, it's better than Tabakoto. We have a paved highway there. We have a major power line. So these are big, big assets. To use an example from Semifo, just to add grid power, it's saving them between 65 and 75 bucks an ounce for production cost. So that's a big number and a big asset. Capital structure, we're a product of '08. I'd like to have that half of that. But in '08, we made a decision to move this forward or die. And so this is what we did. We had to blow out some shares. But now we're a $750 million to $800 million company. And we got a pretty decent growth profile. Biggest shareholders, Century, Sprott, Fidelity. If those three guys band together, they could tell us where to go. And we have about 80 to 85% as institutional. So we have a very strong following. And we talk to these people quite a bit. And this is us. That was a 7-bar day. And so you may think it's a smile, but it's a bit of a grimace because it took a while to get the photo properly. These things get heavy. And that's her story.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We've written about this as really an exploration story with production because of all the potential in Burkina and up the road at Kofi. But it is a production story, and that's the way the market looks at it. So one of the questions I've had from some of our readers after the kerfuffle last year with the change in production profile is, what have you done to address the supply pipeline to keep operations going? And if you're going to increase to 200,000 ounces a year, are you going to be able to keep the machinery in operation to keep that going? And can you address that a bit for us, please?
Well, the issue with getting supplies in last year was a Côte d'Ivoire issue. Now you kind of think, well, what does that have to do with Mali or Burkina Faso? But when the port in Abidjan closed, everything went to Dakar. And so then you'd have drill parts stuck either in the port or on the border with Mali for up to 6 weeks. There's absolutely nothing you can do about that. So if there wasn't a better port to go through Ghana, so you don't really have a choice. So you just got to grin and bear it. So there isn't a better way other than the more stocked your warehouse is, the more capital that you're carrying in terms of assets is the best way to do it. We know that it takes 3 to 6 months to get supplies in, and so you want to be that 3 to 6 months ahead all the time. It's almost like working in Arctic Canada. When you have 9 months of the year you can't move anything, in 3 months you better. So that's the main fix, is better planning, better scheduling. The drills that showed up, they showed up without parts. And we asked, well, where are the parts? Where are the consumables? And so we had to catch up. And so I think the main thing is just planning.
Okay. Also, there's been news out of Mali with trouble in northern Mali. It's interesting, when we first got into this, we were more concerned about Burkina because at the time there was worry about the Arab Spring stirring things up there, but Burkina seems to have settled down. There doesn't seem to be an issue there. But now there's political worry in Mali. I understand that's on the northern side. It really doesn't affect where you are at all. But is there increased security issues or costs associated with that? Or is there trouble on the horizon you see there?
The only impact we've seen so far is Bamako, the capital city of Mali, where you fly in, was locked down for 1 day, and so there's no flights in, and so that affects people coming and going. But the issues in Mali are 1,500 kilometers from where we are, and it's an issue that's 1,000 years old. The Tuareg people have never agreed to central government influence, and so now when they got kicked out of Libya, because they were working for the Gaddafis, they want to establish their own homeland in northern Mali, and the Mali military were caught off guard. As of yet, nothing's come to Bamako of any substance, and nothing at all has come to our area of the world. So in a worst case scenario, we'll just come in from the Dakar or Senegal side, and we don't have to worry about that. The Bambara people that we deal with, there's never been an issue.
Have they finished that bridge yet over the river?
Absolutely, yeah, it's nice. But they didn't build a customs port.
Oh. Okay, but so you do have road access now, pretty much. You can from Bamako. You can.
We're getting more and more traffic on that, but we still have fuel coming in from the north. And the government was just, I don't know why they started a month after the bridge was done to get something arranged. And once it's arranged, then it should cut down our transportation cost. Just to give you an example, to take a load of fuel from the Port of Dakar through to our site takes about 3 days for a truck. It's not that far, but the roads are not that good. With the new road and the bridge that we were talking about, it cuts the time down to about a day and a half. So it's a big, big change. And again, talking about pathways, that's the best thing for us, is to really focus on that new road and a new corridor.
Marin, do you have it? Okay, all right, thank you very much.